Join us in the Bear Den, a real-life, real-love podcast celebrating the joys and challenges of parenting, family dynamics, and unconditional love.
All right, my friends, welcome to another episode of the Bear Den podcast. Today, I have a beautiful special guest. She is Brazilian. She is a top realtor here in Utah, and she's also a full-time mom. It is Miss Sarah Martindale. How are you?
Yes, good. How are you? Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely welcome.
Being here. I've watched all these women that they're all, so inspiring for me. I love them all. And being here, I'm like, oh my gosh.
I love it. Well, I'm so honored you took the time out of your day. Your phone is blowing up over here because you got real estate deals going left, right, and center. So I'm very, very, very honored that you took time out of the day. So thank you so much. Let's bring that mic a little closer to you so we can hear you. And then let's dive in. So you have a really interesting story.
Yes.
When I first met Chris and then I met you and then started hearing and learning about you, I was like, this is a person I wanted to have on my podcast. So, let's go right back to the very beginning.
Right.
Sarah, you Brazilian, living in Brazil.
Yep.
Tell me about this. Tell me about this.
So I was, born and raised in Brazil, was living my life.
Whereabouts in Brazil?
What's that?
Whereabouts in Brazil?
What part?
Yeah.
So northern Brazil, the name of the city is called Belém, is right by the Amazon rainforest.
Ooh.
So it's backwards of here. It's humid and just hot all year. And here it's cold and dry. I'm like, this is completely different. But
why did I do this?
I know, right? I got here. I'm like, what am I doing here? But I made what? It's going to be 8 years now. Oh my gosh.
8 years.
Time flies.
Wow,
Seriously.
so you haven't been here that long.
No, it's going to be 8 years. Yep.
Wow.
And then it's funny because before I moved here, I studied English my whole life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I attend schools, bilingual schools. And then I'm like, I think I'm ready for this. When I got here, you guys are speaking. I was like, what are you guys speaking? This is not the English I learned.
This isn't the Rosetta Stone.
No. Yep,
Oh my
So
Lord.
I have to pretty much relearn everything.
Did you have to learn everything again?
Yeah. So a little bit of my story, right? I was living in Brazil, having just normal life. I had friends and family there. I graduated. I have a graduation in business administration, and then I have a specialization in international business. So, and I've always wanted to do my master's degree here in U.S. I've always wanted to, I always planned to move to U.S., but I never really pulled the trigger until I got kidnapped in Brazil. I know, it's a crazy story.
Whoa. Let's just not throw that out there and move right back. You got kidnapped?
I did. So you could say they planned to kidnap us, but luckily it ended up being just a carjacking. So should I tell the story?
Yes.
So it was crazy. I used to live in a considered safe area in Brazil.
Okay.
And it's just, before I say this though, can I just say something?
Absolutely.
Brazil is beautiful. I don't want to scare anybody who is watching this. And Brazil is just like anywhere you go, like even in Utah, California, US in general.
Has good and bad.
Certain areas, exactly. There's good and bad. It's just, don't go there. Or if you go there, just
be smart.
Be smart, exactly. So I was going to the bank. It's a funny story because actually I was going to the bank by myself. I was just going to, doing some stuff, work stuff, and I was going to get cash. And before I left my house, for some reason, my dad, he was like, you know what? I want to go with you. And he never said that. I was used to going to the bank, doing stuff by myself. And I was like, sweet. So you drive for me. I have a lot of stuff to do on my computer and my phone. So I'll just be in a passenger seat. He was like, cool. I think he just want to spend some time with me. For some reason, I don't know why my dad decided to go with me. So 2 blocks after our house, we stopped at the red light and it was so fast. The whole thing was so fast. 3 guys with guns surround our car and they hit on the glass with the gun like, hey, open the door. And 2 things. We're at the red light and we had a car in front of us. We couldn't really take it off. Yeah. You know what I mean? And second, we didn't have a bulletproof car. So if we had it, we would just be sitting there and
not
be
everybody
like,
does.
whatever.
You know?
No, actually in Brazil, it's not common, but you will see a lot. So every time
Really?
I go back to Brazil, I always rent a
Bulletproof car.
bulletproof car.
You like mistakes, yeah.
So of course we had to open the door because we're completely vulnerable. So my dad opened the door, unlocked the car, and they got in the back seat. 3 guys, right? They got in the back seat. They put the gun between my dad and I, and they said, don't look back. Don't call the police. Just drive. If you do anything, we're going to kill you. Oh my gosh. After that moment, my dad, he started freaking out. And for some reason, I had a reaction to, this is me completely being me. Being me.
You tried to sell him a house.
Yeah, right?
Do you guys by any chance, do any of you 3 need to buy a house?
I tried to negotiate my own kidnapping because I literally, I had a reaction for some reason to praying as loud as I could, and I didn't stop. I smashed my hand on the dashboard. I was like, God, come in this car right now, protect us, put your angels around this car. Don't let them do anything. So I was like literally praying as loud as I could, and I was just like praying. One of them I heard saying like, dude, she's Christian. They said that. And then the other one was like, man, whoa, hold on, calm down. Listen, I don't know if you believe this, but this is totally what I believe. I think God made them blind. They couldn't do anything with us. They literally froze. Like, I'm sorry, of course they cleaned out, but after that moment, they started being afraid of us. They're like, listen. Okay, what do you want us to do with you? I was like, oh, sweet. I'm in control. This is awesome. That's when I realized I need to become
you can give me your gun, you can give me your money, you can give me your shoes and your watch, and you can bugger off.
That's when I realized, I was like, listen, I think I could sell some houses because I negotiated my own kidnapping. I think I can negotiate some houses out there.
Good.
Seriously. I negotiated with criminals. Just give it to me. I can do anything.
Wow.
No, but seriously, I just felt so confident in God. I had a confidence that God gave me the confidence. I just knew everything that happened. It happened so fast, and I just knew God was protecting us. It's crazy to say this, but I just felt it's like millions of thoughts cross through your mind, like, oh, I'm going to die, I'm going to survive. But at the same time, I had a peace in my heart. I just knew God was protecting us. And my dad, though, he was freaking out. Like, I could see he was driving like this. I could see like he was like this, shaking, like his hands, his legs. I had to hold his arm and be like, I held his arm and I looked him in the face and be like, Dad, calm down, because if you don't calm down, they're going to kill us. Because if you're too nervous, you make them nervous, and that's when they shoot you. So, and after the whole thing, my dad was like, listen, you never tell me to calm down in a situation like that. One day you're going to have kids and you're going to know exactly what I was going through. And literally now looking back, now that I have 2 kids, I know exactly what he's going through.
He wasn't scared for himself. He was scared for you.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Because he was like, what if they, tell me to leave the car and continue with you and doing who knows what, like the worst thing possible. So literally now looking back, I think I would still have the faith, but I would totally freak out.
Yeah, I do things a little differently.
100%.
Maybe not be so mouthy or
Isn't
loud.
It so funny?
But it's so crazy that you having that faith, having that confidence, and also not cowering down to them, almost showing a little bit of defiance. I'm like, if you're going to do this, then you're going to do this crossing me and God.
Seriously,
so,
yes.
But you better be on the right side of this.
Exactly.
And they all turned around and went, this isn't how we planned. Yeah. She's mental. She's crazy.
She's crazy.
And God's in the car.
Because I always tell this, I'm crazy. Maybe crazy about Jesus, but I'm just crazy. And literally, they were just so afraid of us. And they even said that out loud. They said, you know what? We planned something so big to do something so big with you guys. We just don't want to stay here anymore. They were so afraid of us. Yeah. So they told my dad to turn in a really weird street, like a very tiny, dark. That was like, I'm not going to lie, for 1 second, I thought maybe this is the end. So they told my dad to stop the car and two of them left so fast. Like they're just like mice. Like you don't even see where they go, you know? And the one with the gun, he stayed in the car. So I don't know why I had a reaction of looking back. I looked him in the eyes, like, because I wanted to see him. And he was like, what the fuck are you doing? Are you crazy? Why are you looking back? Because he didn't want to have eye contact, right? Yeah. So, and I wanted to see his face because like I knew later if I had to recognize him, I just knew the little shit. I just knew him. So he put the gun in my head and I closed my eyes and I was like, I think this is it. I prayed one last time. I said this very loud. I said, God is with you now. I said this and I let it, you know, I just said that. And he told me, you guys going to leave this place. You're not going to look back again. You're not going to call the police. You're not going to do anything. We know everything about you. You know where we live. We know where you live. We know everything. Just drive. Don't do anything. So he left. My dad took off immediately. We had to stop almost like in a busy street to calm down. After the whole thing happened, my dad stopped the car. We looked at each other. We're like literally checking each other if we got like shot because sometimes the adrenaline you get shot, you don't feel it.
Absolutely.
And we're like, and that's when I had a breakdown. I was like literally screaming and I was like, ah, like literally, you know, when you're screaming like relief, like,
it's like a feral.
I cannot believe I went through this.
It's like animalistic. It's
seriously,
something
it was
from within you
wild.
You don't know,
yes.
Right?
We were like, my dad was like, daughter, you're alive. We're alive. It was crazy. The whole story. Every time I tell this story, I either cry or I get goosebumps because I still can't believe what I went through with my dad.
How old were you when this happened?
So that was exactly
8.5 years ago.
7.5 years ago. Exactly.
Right before you moved.
So that was crazy. I was 24 when that happened. Wow. And, you know, and people ask me all the time, like, Sarah, how do you feel after this whole thing? You know, you probably have some type of like trauma or syndrome. You know, I'm like, you know what? No, I actually, and this is the thing, I don't like to have the victimize mindset. You know, of course, that was very traumatic, right? But I like to look the good and bad things of everything that happens in my life. I'm like, what can I learn from this? And my lesson number one is now more than anything, I know that God is protecting me. God is with me all the time, everywhere I go, you know? And growing up in Brazil, it's funny because, you know, you kind of know that, I don't want to scare anybody, but
no, but I think it happens in Brazil.
It happens.
It's not here,
but not in Brazil, but in Mexico too.
Well, in Mexico too, and it happens around the world. Let's be honest.
It does.
South America, it has a lot of gun crime. You know, you're talking Brazil, Mexico, even Venezuela,
in US,
Colombia.
The crime is going up.
Yes, so gun crime happens. I'm assuming that when you live in a country that has a lot of gun crime, which Brazil does, that's kind of a lesson you get taught as a kid.
Yes.
Or when you go to driver's ed, it's a case of lock your door, put your seat, like,
100%.
And also a case, be aware of the guy with the gun.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I always tell, like, when I get, every time I have an opportunity to talk to, you know, especially girls, like, that's my biggest advice when they're walking. I see some girls, they're like, coming out of Target, they're just on their phone, like doing selfies, like, or on their phones. I'm like, no, be aware of your surroundings. 100%. It doesn't matter, even if you are in a safe area, like that could happen. It's not that you're going to have a fear, right? You're going to be scared all the time. Oh my gosh, it's going to happen in time. No, just be aware of your surroundings. And that's the other thing I always tell. My kids are too little now, but I always try to teach them based on their age, but like also be confident. Like when you're walking, if you see a guy, that guy passed 3-4 times by you and he's looking like staring at you. Don't just like look it down, don't be scared. Show that you have some confidence. Be like, because I've done that multiple times where this stranger guy crossed me. I was like, you know what? I think this is the second, third time I see this guy. And one time I went and I went like, what? Why are you looking at me? Like, you know what I mean? So look in the eyes, making sure you do eye contact. That shows a little bit of Like, don't, you know what I mean? Like, intimidating, like,
it's not the intimidation. You're not showing weakness and you're not showing fear.
Yes.
And that's all they're preying on. They're preying on the woman or the man that looks away, averts his eyes, crosses the street, takes that extra step or tenses up. Like, they look for that. Yeah. Whereas if they see somebody that doesn't skip a beat, looks them right back in the eyes and is like, what the fuck are you looking at? As you go past them, they're like, I'm not messing with that person.
Yes.
There's a fight there and I'm not ready to, they don't want the fight.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if they see somebody that's got fight in their eyes, they don't want that. No. And that's exactly what happened to you in the car.
Exactly.
You had fight in your eyes and they were like, we didn't anticipate this.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And I grew up doing capoeira. That's a fight in Brazil. And now I do boxing here. And my kids are in jiu-jitsu. So that's another thing too. I always tell people, or especially girls, like, if you can, do some type of self-defense class, because that will help you with the confidence, you know, not being intimidated by anybody. Yeah. Like, not only guys, but like, you just never know.
Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
Just some
and that's a beautiful lesson for you to teach your children. I think it's a lesson that's important that we should all teach our children is the awareness. Because you're right, we all have cell phones. Yeah. You know, I've done it myself. Yep. Come out of the grocery store, I'm texting or whatever, you know, or you're on the phone, you're not paying attention to what's around you. And it may not be that in, you know, Salt Lake City, you're going to get kidnapped, but you walk out of Target looking down on your phone and boom, you miss the car that you didn't see and it hits you.
Seriously.
You know?
And it's fast.
It doesn't just stop with us walking and on the phone. It then progresses to us driving on the phone and then there's other. So it's being distracted is a disservice. Yes. And just having that awareness, especially if you're a young female, you know, because you are, that is a very risky position to be in society, unfortunately. And so it just taking that extra step to be to know your surroundings is such an important lesson. So you got kidnapped.
I did.
But you didn't. You kind of just went for a joyride with 3 strangers and then you scared the shit out of them and they left and they've never kidnapped another person ever again.
You know, it's funny. They actually did a week. So here's the thing, a little bit of, it's a long story, but I'll try to keep it short.
That's fine.
So we went to the police, right?
So you did everything they told you not to do. Yeah. So, got it. Okay.
Right. I'm telling you, I'm not intimidated by criminals.
I love it. I love it.
So yeah, we went right after we went to the police. We had, you know, had to do a police report and everything. So they went to the jail, but unfortunately in Brazil, it's so sad. The justice doesn't really, the laws and everything, you know, doesn't work right as it should be. Mm-hmm. So they let him out because of good behavior. And a week later, they did exactly the same thing with 3 girls in a car. But with them, I think they did exactly what they planned to do with us because they beat them so bad. They kept him as a hostage. And that was like on the national news. My dad and I were having dinner and we were watching the news and my dad was like, Sarah, look this. Like, we couldn't even believe they were in the national news. Like, you know, when they showed a busy street and they had cameras negotiating, they asked for their mom to negotiate. Like, that's the criminals. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I even told my dad, maybe that could have been us. By a miracle, we're just literally watching this. Anyways. God. I know, it's so sad.
Isn't that crazy to think the road that could have gone down?
So crazy. So after the whole thing, I was like, you know what? I want to get married one day, have kids, and this is not the place where I want to, you know, go through this, like thinking that I could go through this like anytime. I don't feel safe here. So why don't now I pull the trigger and move to the U.S.? So at that time, I had a cousin. She was living here in U.S. in Utah for 25 years. And she was an angel in my life. By the way, I love her so much. I don't know if she's watching this. I just love her so much. She was an angel. God used her in my life. It's funny because in my life, I've always felt the love of like from God, but through someone. He always used someone in my life to bless me. And I try to pass that, you know, every time I have opportunity, I try to help someone somehow. And she was like, she knew what happened. And she was like, hey, why don't you move here to just forget about this whole thing. Spend like 3 to 6 months, see what happens. If you like it, if you don't, just go back. You still have your family and friends. So I was like, sweet. At that time, I had a scholarship to do my master's degree in University of Florida. But I never did because I didn't know anybody in Florida. So I was like, you know what? I try to transfer that to University of Utah. I'll apply for University of Utah. If they accept me, that would be my sign that I should go. A week later, I applied. They accept me because you have to submit all your grades, like curriculum, everything. And they're like, we want you here. So it was the whole thing. It happened so fast. I think within 2 months after that happened, I was here. I moved here, and it was even hard to explain my family and friends. They thought I was like hiding the whole, like, the move.
Did your parents think it was a move for school? Like you'd be coming back after 4 years after you've done your master's? Or did mom and dad know that
they're like,
she's packed all of her clothes, she's taken,
it doesn't think like
she's taken all of her belongings. I don't think she's coming back.
I was like, see ya. So I was like, you know what? Let's see how it goes. Maybe Utah. I'd never even heard of Utah before. I had no idea what it was like until I got here. And it's funny because it's a completely different lifestyle. It's, it's just quiet. It's a family orientated, state. Mm-hmm. And at the time I was single, I was like partying, Brazil life. And
not
then
really
I was like,
the state to choose.
I was like, what am I doing
partying
here?
in the US. They don't serve alcohol until noon.
No, they don't. You have to go to liquor store to get alcohol. I'm like, this is a lot of work.
I'm going to brunch for mimosa and I can't drink alcohol at 9 a.m. What is wrong with this country?
But then you just learn to love Utah. And once you do, it's like, you never move out. Like, seriously, I can't even imagine myself.
I'm here every month. Like, I love this. Is literally my second home.
Seriously. I was just like getting old and I was like, I think I'm going to have a family and this is the best place. And honestly, I cannot picture myself living in any other state. Possibly Florida.
Arizona's
maybe,
nice.
But
Arizona's nice. It's only 105 degrees.
I was saying Florida, it's like halfway to Brazil,
Well, there we go. You're halfway there.
But yeah, and so I moved here, right? And then 6 months I was here, I met Chris.
How did you guys meet?
We met. It's a modern romantic life story.
Tinder?
Kidding. We met on Tinder.
I was going to say, boom, I just called it Tinder. Boom.
You know it is. I always joke about this. I was like, swiping and then someone called me the wrong direction. I was like, what? And then dang it, we matched. I was like, no, that was not supposed to be. Just kidding. I joke about this all the time. Don't say this.
Oh, Chris, my friend, I am so sorry.
Just kidding.
We love you, Chris. We love you, buddy.
I was joking about
I was distracted. Next thing you know, I'm matched, and here I am.
Here I am. Okay. I guess we'll try it. I always tell him, babe, it's just business, okay? Straight to business.
It's just business.
Green card.
That's so good.
But then he fell in love, and here I am stuck with him and 2 beautiful kids, and I can't leave him.
Get out of here. You two are the most amazing, beautiful couple.
It's life has been just so amazing with him and our beautiful babies.
Yeah.
We have our business together. We do real estate.
You do. You're both in real estate, which is it's the same world as me, so I get that.
Yes,
I understand, the struggles and the difficulties of real estate and the time commitments and, all that sort of stuff. So for both of you to be doing that,
yes.
What are some of the things, which actually is a great segue into the next section I wanted to talk about, because with you both being in business, which is fantastic, and you're both very, very successful realtors.
It's awesome.
What do you and Chris do? What are some of the things that you both put in place which are non-negotiables for your family? That we do not bend on this. This is what we do. This is how we stay together, collective and in communication and tight.
Actually, you just said that right word. It's so one thing, our number one thing, I feel like it's communication, especially because we're both from different cultures, right? So raising kids with different cultures, we're super busy. So we try to be so understanding and communicating, like, listen, we always try at the beginning of the week, it's like we sit down and this is our schedule for the week. Like, how can we find a time for ourselves, for, kids? And one of the main things too is once we're with the kids, we have quality time with them. Like it's so hard because like you said, my phone is blowing up all the time, like phone and text, and we find ourselves all the time on the phone. And I always try to remember that, like once we're with the kids, let's be present. Because I feel like that's challenging nowadays with technology, phone, work. So I would say, yes, that communication, being present. And one thing that for us, it's the most important is integrity. And that's how, that's how I fell in love with Chris, because he has integrity. His heart is just so beautiful. His character, and I just love him from who he is. And that's our number one thing. I feel like integrity with, being transparent with each other and just expectation in general, because again, he comes from a different culture. What in my mind, to me, it's something that he was supposed to be doing because of culture. That's how I was raised. He does completely different. And it doesn't mean he's being rude or wrong. It's just the way his perspective of life. Like that's how he was raised, and that was different. So it's really hard to find that balance, of, well, this for me, this is normal. For you, it's something completely different. So, and same with our kids, we try to find, okay, we're raising 2 kids with different cultures. Let's just find what we think the best of each culture and implement that in our family,
I love that.
Yeah, it's definitely fun.
So do you have a nice blend of Brazilian culture and American culture?
It's very 50-50%.
Really?
Our kids are both fluent in Portuguese, in English.
Wow.
Which is amazing. It's just so funny to see them like blah, 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 blah.
Okay, so
both
be
languages
honest.
Going back and forth.
Do you and the kids have a little convetion about
of course
dad?
we do.
Of course you do. Of course
I'm like,
you do.
it's okay, Dad is not understanding. You can tell me what happened.
I love.
But he's starting to pick up though. He's smart. So he's like,
page 87 on Duolingo, right to the end.
Like, what are you guys are talking about me, right? I'm like, no, it's okay, Dad. We're not talking about. We love you, Daddy.
Yeah. He's
so
seen
funny
all that before.
But
so, what are some of the Brazilian cultures that you bring to the family that you implement and stay on top of?
Yeah, so not only the language, but I always like to. That's funny because I cook Brazilian food almost every day in our house.
Do you really?
We do, actually. So we have lunch for us. It's a big meal, right? So you guys do a quick snack.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, lunch is important in Brazilian culture, okay? So we take a long break. We do a full meal. I'll cook Brazilian food, It's rice, beans, and steak, a good Brazilian steak, and then dinner.
No wonder
too.
you all siesta for 3 hours afterwards.
100%. Yes, you have to have a siesta
had a
because you feel
massive
like
meal.
Exactly. So we're constantly cooking Brazilian food in our house. The kids are, listening. It's funny because those things help a lot with the culture. It's not only teaching my kids Portuguese. I have to also implement that culture. It helps with everything, not only the language,
Yeah.
So I'll cook Brazilian food. They play Brazilian music all the time, and TV only in Portuguese. And it's funny, the other thing, babysitters, I only hire babysitters that speak Portuguese in our house.
Oh, really?
Yes, because at home they're speaking Portuguese, and out there they're, speaking English.
So do they speak full Portuguese at home?
Full Portuguese. And I get asked all the time. It's very hard. It's not that easy to do that. And people ask me all the time, like, what are your secrets? Like, how do you raise bilingual kid, not being, just being away from Brazil? And one of the things I do, especially with my oldest, I only have 2 kids, right? One, a 3.5 boy and 1.5-year girl. And he's in school. My son is in school. So when he gets home, it's not easy, okay?
Yeah.
But once he gets home, I'll get everything he learned from school, and I review with him in Portuguese. So I reteach him everything in Portuguese. So I feel like that's a key to keep up with grammar,
commitment.
Everything. It's a huge commitment, but it's so worth, because when I see him, I take him to Brazil once a year, and they're able to speak with all their cousins and, and so.
That's very, very important.
Yes.
Very, very important. But the commitment from you, again, on top of the work and on top of family to again, go through an 8-hour day school day of work and then compress that back into Portuguese again when you get home on top of cooking and family and
oh
work.
my gosh, it's crazy.
It's
definitely crazy. People who ask me like, how do you do everything? I'm like, I don't.
Yeah.
You know, you just, right now, Chris and I, we got to a point where I was trying to do everything. I was going crazy, and, you know, the mental, like, just load. I was like, you know, exhausted, and we sat down and we're like, how can we make this happen? How do we make life happen with our busy life? So you just gotta allow, same with the business, right? I'm a realtor. I can be the same that will do marketing, record the videos, add everything, do the background, like everything. So you have to have assistant. You have to have a marketing person to take care of videos for you. You have to do same in our house. So again, I know it's not easy. Not everybody can afford that, but as our business growing, as our life is growing, we're like, okay, now it's time to hire in a babysitter, and she will take care of this part, and someone that will come and clean our house. Like, allow yourself to.
You got to diversify.
Seriously, and that's better, because then you're surrounded with, you know, support, and that's one thing too. In Brazil, I have a huge family, and you just help each other. It's so nice, and here we're all on our own, but we had to have professional help from.
You have to.
You know,
if you want your businesses to grow and you want your family to grow, and you can't do it all, you have to bring in outside help.
Exactly.
And, you know, I know that you travel for work, you know, just like I do, conferences around the country for real estate and brokerage conferences. Same with Chris, you know, events around the country and conferences. Like, you travel. So when he travels, everything's on you.
Yes.
And when you travel, everything's on him. So you got to have a support system.
Exactly. You have to.
Especially when you are two very busy working parents and you have two very little children.
Yes.
Like, it's not as if, like, for instance, Andrea and I now with a 13 and an 11-year-old, they can wash themselves, feed themselves, dress themselves, take themselves to school. Like, they don't, in essence, we physically don't need to help them with anything during their day.
Yes.
We do, and we can, and we will, but we don't have to.
Exactly.
Whereas you right now, it's a case of, shit, if I'm not in it, or somebody's not with them, they're not learning.
100%.
You know?
And at one point when I had my daughter, I was like, you know what? That's the thing too. I allow myself to take a little break, step away. You know, it's just like everything in life, seasons, right? I found myself like, okay, I'm working, but then what about my kids? I'm not with them all the time. So right after I had my baby girl, I was like, I think I'm going to step back a little bit from real estate. I was still working with some clients, referrals, but I allowed myself to be with, you know, my kids, and that's okay, because I'm telling you this, maybe your wife or someone who's watching this will relate. It's hard to take that decision, because if you're out there working and your mind is like, oh, my kids are home, I feel so guilty. And then if you're home with them, you're like, oh my gosh, competition out there is killing it. It's a battle in our minds. And I feel like you will never win. But at one point I had to literally be like, you know what? This is seasons. This season in my life, I'm going to be with my kids, spending quality time with them. And, you know, at one point they're going to be in school full time, and I'll be 100% back to work.
That's where you get back to work.
And that's,
I think it's very important though what you said, that it's a season. Because I think what often can happen is, and not just for mothers, this can also happen with husbands too, is when you take such an extended period out of the workplace to raise children. Sadly, the way that the workplace is now, with technology and businesses and growth and just the way the world operates, 6 months to a year out of work or production today is almost like 5 years a couple of years ago, because the way and the speed that the business moves. So you take that year out to be a parent, by the time you're back in the workplace, you're like, oh shit, like, this isn't the way we used to do it just 12 months ago. And it's a whole relearning, retraining, and it's actually a step back. So you've got to be very conscious of when you do that, of like, okay, what's the effect? What's the downside of the business side of things? Yep. But the positive of being with the kids outweighs the downside of the business. 100%. But you have to really look at that.
Yes.
If you don't look at it and just go into it blind and case, well, just take this, only 12 months. What's the worst that could happen? Well, guess what? Businesses have closed within 12 months. Industries have changed within 12 months.
When I went back to work after I had my baby, I was like, wait. A lot of things changed. Yeah. It was just like 12 months. I was like, exactly what
Could you imagine being a regional manager at Bed Bath & Beyond and going on 12 months maternity leave and coming back and there's no fucking
like, what
business?
Happened to my...
It's like, I leave for 12 months and the business shuts?
100%.
You know?
Oh my gosh.
But that's, life is and then what do you do? You know, then you've got to retrain, relearn, and move into a potentially different job or 100%. Career path. So it's a very conscious decision you have to make.
Yes,
it's
not easy. It's a fine line to find the balance of, you know, working too much. Okay, we want to conquer the world. I want to get my name out there, my brand. But I still have kids. You know, I still need to be with them, and to me, that's the most important. Yeah. They still going to be my priority, and I'm not, you know.
Well, because let's be real. How old are you right now?
I'm going to be 32.
Okay, so you're 32. So your eldest is what, 3?
3.5.
So by the time they're 16 in another 13 years, you're going to be 45. You're still going to have another good 10 years of work 100%. Ahead of you anyway. You know, hopefully you can retire then because you've all been so successful. You're like, I'm not working past 40, honey. You know what I mean?
I was just talking about that with someone today. And exactly, I was like, you know what? I'm going to have, once they are fully in school, I'm going to have the rest of my life to work on whatever I want. But they're little only this time. So
absolutely.
Definitely not worth, you know.
No, I love that.
Yes.
So, this has been, I can't believe it's almost been an hour, which is amazing. And as we're starting to wrap up, your story is so intriguing. The whole kidnapping thing blows my mind. Like, holy hell. The whole fact that you got kidnapped and then you talked your way out of it just is
I know, right?
Such a testament to exactly who you are.
Funny.
And I love that. I was like,
you know what's funny? When I went back to Brazil, like after 5 years that I was living here, my first time going back to Brazil, took, you know, the kids and Chris. Like, first we're gonna get a bulletproof car, and we drove by exactly the same street where everything happened. I'm not gonna lie, my heart raced a little bit, and I showed Chris everything. And so funny because that same week we were in Brazil, so Chris saw a lady being robbed in the bus stop, and he was like, should I run the car? Like, should I just go help her? I'm like,
no.
Fuck no.
No.
Sorry, I know it's a reality. No. He was like, but babe, we have a bulletproof car. I could just run the car like over the guy, like the robber. I'm like, sorry, babe. I know, I see your good intention, but that's not how it works. Unfortunately, I pray that girl will be okay, but just go, get out of here, you know? And again, I don't want to scare.
No, it's...
Oh man,
it's true though.
It's true though.
Yeah,
it's so bad,
you got to face the reality of society we're in.
Yes.
And that was actually, you're so good at this. You're actually leading into my next questions, which are great. My question as we're wrapping up was, as you go back to Brazil now, I heard you say that you go back once a year with your eldest. When you go back now, how has being a mother, living in the US without the threat of being carjacked at, you know, downtown SLC, when, you know, how has that changed your perception of Brazil, your perception of home, and the way you interact with your country and your, you know, your fellow people?
You know, it's funny because I hear sometimes people will be complaining about stupid things. I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are so lucky here in US. You know, you have so many things that if you could just go down to Mexico. You don't even go further south to Brazil, but just go to Mexico and see the realities, like two completely different worlds. That's why I always take my kids once a year, because it's so funny. Sometimes they'll be like complaining, oh, we want more toys, blah, blah, complaining about things. I'm like, let's have a life, you know, experience a little bit in Brazil. So that's why I always take them to Brazil, and we'll spend a month there. They'll live the culture. They'll see a completely different reality. And it's funny because every time we come back, oh my gosh, they're like, oh, Mom, we love our house. It's so big. We love our toys. They just love their toys so much, and the food and everything. I'm like, you're just so fortunate, you know, a lot of people are just they have no idea what is being hungry or not being able to buy a toy for your kids. Like here you guys spoil kids with tons of gifts for Christmas. I'm like, in Brazil, we only get one gift from Santa. It's only one. And here it's like 10, 20 gifts underneath the Christmas tree. I'm like, this is so crazy.
Yeah.
You guys spoil way too much, which there's nothing wrong with that. Like, right? You work so hard. You still want to spoil kids. It's fine. But you still want to teach them, just teach them the price on things, the value of things. Yeah. And there are kids that have a completely different life in Africa, everywhere go. Even here in US, there are kids that are starving.
You don't need to go very far from home.
Exactly. So it's always nice to to do that, a little trip to Brazil or anywhere you can go, or even again in Utah, just go to certain areas and show your kids the reality. Or sometimes even for myself, I find myself, you just get caught up in this busy life. You're just trying to, conquer things and buy. I want more and more comfortable life, more and more, make my home more and more comfortable. But then, okay, what's really important in life, Like what about other people? Like, let's make life not only about me. What about the others? Like, how can I give back to the community? How can I help someone? How can I, just buy someone a lunch or a dinner? You just never know what, people are going through.
I love that.
Yes.
That's very, it's very true and very powerful. You don't know what others are going through.
Yep.
We should all really just celebrate each other and be nice to everybody, because you don't know who's having a good day or bad day or indifferent, right?
100%.
Last question, and kind of a weird question in a way, but do you, and it's a very personal one actually, but do you ever get any feelings or emotions when you go home where you look at where your friends and family's lives are with regards to what they have, the home they live in, the town they're in, and compared to what you and Chris have here in the US? Do you feel is there any feelings of guilt or, you know what I'm trying to get at? Like, it's weird when you become successful and you have the beautiful things and you've left a country which you grew up in for 24 years and almost you become more successful than the family that you've left behind. Like, there can be a disparity and a little bit of difference and tension between the families. Do you feel that or have
honestly,
any of that?
I don't, because what could be a successful life for me could be different from someone, for example, which someone consider being successful in business, having money or being on top of your career could be successful. But I also consider being a stay-at-home mom that teaches, their kid, just teach whatever she learned from, and being a mother of her home, being able to be home with her kids. I consider that as a successful too. So when I go back to Brazil, I see my whole family together, they're laughing. I don't have any immediate family. So I feel like I'm not saying I'm not, I am completed. I am happy, but there's always going to be something missing. Like my family, my brothers, my dad are back there but I'm so lucky to, every time I go back, I get to be with them. I don't feel they of course they have a different reality, right? Brazil, you have less opportunities, less a lot of things. But, I try to look the positive side too. I consider the health system in Brazil way better, education way better, universities are way better. So, and just food in general is way better.
It's not processed.
So it's always
it's real,
100%.
It's real food.
It's
like it's come out of the ground and it's on your plate.
Yeah, fast food is expensive in Brazil. Really, really expensive.
Fast food is cooking with the heat turned up higher.
Yeah.
That's fast food in Brazil.
Exactly. That's what I love that.
That's fast food in Brazil. We just turn the gas up higher and cook it quicker. That's it.
I love that. I never heard this before. I love it. That's exactly how it is. So definitely, there's always good and bad. There's no such a perfect place. There's no such a, there's always going to be something that you could change. I even tell my clients, there's not a perfect place, a perfect house. You know how it is. I always try to explain that to my clients. There's never going to be a perfect house. even if you build your house, you're
never
gonna
perfect.
2 years later, you're gonna be like, oh, I wish I would have done this different, you know?
Yep.
And just be happy with it. Like, consider yourself successful, even if you're just a stay-at-home mom with your kids. You are so lucky to be able to be with your kids, you know? And some moms are out there, they wish they're home with their kids.
Yep.
So, and if you consider yourself successful because you're running your business, you know, oopsie.
You're going to redo the whole podcast now. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Start from scratch.
Oh my God.
No,
awesome.
I think that, quite honestly, is one of the best and most beautiful answers I've heard.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you say that, because there are other friends of ours, which you know, that so happen to be in the same program that we're all in, we are the they, that have the same thoughts and mindset around success. Success doesn't mean you have the big house, the 10 cars, the bank account with millions in it. You know, you could be a stay-at-home mom that you know works at Starbucks, but in your mind you have a beautiful family, you have a stable job, you have a loving home. That's success.
That is
success is different to everybody.
Their kids are probably healthy, going to school, and
so the way you answered that of, you know, you don't see yourself as being more successful because you have what you have and they have what they have, and they both
100%.
love that is really, really cool. That's
awesome.
a great answer.
Awesome.
Sarah, this has been an amazing episode. There were parts of this this is literally an hour.
Dang it. I could stay here all day.
I know, right? I'm like, holy moly, we may have to do another episode.
Hopefully people understand
because
my
I would
accent.
love to have you and Chris on and start, and that would be really fun. And I am actually planning to start doing that, is to bring couples in, because I've interviewed a lot of one side or the other, but bringing couples in. So we will definitely have you back, because you are an absolute hoot. But
thank you.
Your story is beautiful.
Thank you.
The kidnapping and the whole moving here, and the way that you've explained the way you raise your family and have keep your culture is so beautiful. A lot of work, but beautiful. And I believe it will obviously pay dividends down the road. So I just thank you for taking your time out of your day.
Thank you for having me here.
It's been absolutely fun, and we will have you back.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Bear Den podcast. Please click subscribe and get the updates for our new episodes. And if you feel the need to reach out, you can reach me on Instagram @TheBritBear.